welcome to the Bill Cartwright Show with Steve Cohen. Our special guest today is ex-NBA player, businessman, author, and mayor candidate, James Donaldson. James, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, great to see you, Bill. Great to see you, Steve. All right, nice to meet you guys.
You know, the amazing thing is that, James, you've had a great journey, great life journey. And, we had our own start because we're both from Sacramento.
That's right. That's right. You're just down the road just a little bit at Elk Grove. I know. Yes. And we were the same class in high school.
Same class.
75 graduates. That's right. Same class.
Yeah. Let's talk about this a little bit. Talk about, well, we knew you grew up in Sacramento, but talk about your mom, dad, and your siblings a little bit.
Yeah. Well, looking back over all those years and looking at the work I've done, especially in our inner cities, especially for our communities of color, African-American communities especially, I feel very blessed and fortunate to come from the family I did. Both parents were in the house throughout all my growing up years. Both of them stressed education, hard work would be the key to success. And that's the blueprint I followed. I stayed out of trouble, went to school, started up in sports very late. As you know, you were Mr. Basketball from fourth grade, I think. And I came along as a junior and senior in high school and finally started getting the hang of the game. So, and that was mainly because sports was not really stressed in my household. Education was stressed, hard work, chores. My dad was a military Air Force man for 20 years. And, originally we came from Traverse Air Force Base out there in the Bay Area to Sacramento when I was in the second or third grade. And we started up there in Sacramento. So I was really, truly blessed to have that beginning, that foundation that so many of our young people, especially our young African-American boys, don't have. They don't have a positive male role model who can guide them and steer them from boyhood to manhood. After leaving the house in Sacramento after my high school graduation, coming up here to the Northwest to Washington State University, I found another father figure in George Ravlick. He took the baton and kept on going with me. And then he passed that baton on to Lenny Wilkins. So I had all these great men in my lives, African-American positive male role models that really shaped me into the man I've become today. Even this past Father's Day, I posted photos of me and my father, who's still alive at 94 years of age, photos of George Ravlick and Lenny Wilkins. And I touted how all three of these men made me the man I am today. And I'm just so grateful for that.
Hey, can you talk about, because you did come to basketball late, who convinced you to start playing your junior year? And then now, what were some of the other choices you had outside of going to Washington State, even though that's a great school?
Yes. Well, because I started late, I didn't have a lot of choices. I was, as raw and green as you can be coming out of high school. That was my only year of competitive basketball, my senior year in high school. I just was not really interested in sports, even though I was a really big kid. When I got when I got to high school, Luther Burbank High in South Sacramento, I was already about 6'8", 280 pounds or so. I was a big kid too, not skinny. And I remember the football coach trying to get me to come out my sophomore year in high school and just said, James, all you got to do is put your hands up and block the field goal. That's it. And I just had no real athletic ability or interest at the time. I played in the playground with the kids growing up, kickball and dodgeball and frisbees and baseball and those kind of things out in the playground lots. But I never played basketball, even though I was a big, big kid. I turned down the football coach my junior year, my sophomore and junior year. The basketball coach noticed that I was just this big, shy, introverted kid who didn't know how to work his way around this big body I was blessed with. And like I said, I was pretty heavy, and I had a lot of work to do to even become an athlete. So he came and approached me my junior year in high school, and he said, James, hey, why don't you at least try to practice and see if you can, get the hang of the game? So what I want to do is have you come out to practice every day during your junior year and just practice with the basketball team. You don't have to play any games. You don't have to put on those little tight shorts and tight tank tops that I was embarrassed to wear anyway. And he knew the kind of kid I was. He knew that I would probably be intimidated and scared away if the other kids were making fun of me, which kids have a tendency to do. And so he took the time every single day. This is Coach Chuck Calhoun in Luther Burbank High School. Chuck Calhoun took the time every day to black out the windows in the doors and the gym, all the way around the gym, with newspaper and cardboard. And he put that up there every day so the other kids out there in the hallway couldn't peer in and make fun of me or scare me or laugh at me. And that kind of brought me to a level of comfort and saying, wow, I can trust him. And he knows that, I'm not comfortable. And that's what I did my whole junior year. I just practiced simple little things like, getting a feel for the basketball, catching it, bouncing it off the walls, whipping it around my back, trying to get the dexterity going. I had a long, long way to go. Also, as I mentioned, I was really heavy. So I was probably nearing in at 300 pounds when I came up my junior year. So I started jogging around the school field, about 2-mile jog every day, and lost almost 100 pounds by the time my senior year rolled around.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm a typical kid. I'm going to school, doing my homework, coming home, eating a bowl of cereal, eating all the junk food, filling up as a teenager all day long, watching TV. And that was my life as a teenager. And so I lost about 100 pounds my junior year and finally started realizing that there was some possible basketball potential and a future in that. Coach Chuck Calhoun, I give it to him because and this is what I tell a lot of young people, he saw the potential in me long before I saw it. And that's what it takes to have someone put that kind of trust and faith in you and confidence, and to help you with the baby steps you need to take. By my senior year, I was ready to roll. I played a little bit during the summer league, between my junior and senior league. And then my first official basketball game was as a senior at Luther Burbank High School.
Yeah, I do remember that, when we played against you at Elk Grove.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you realize it or not, but you were pretty hard to get around.
Well, Bill, you were so talented. We didn't know what to do with you. And other than put my hands up and try to make your shot a little more difficult, we practiced, a little squad team, Elk Grove squad team with broomsticks trying to, intimidate your shot, pretend in high school and practice and all that. But that was my job. Just put my hands up and try to make your shot as difficult as possible. You still got your usual 25, 28, whatever you had. And I, trickle in with 8, 9 points, whatever. And that was the beginning of my long road of a basketball career that really played out well for the next 25 years.
So as you left Burbank, you ended up going to Washington State. Now, did you have some other choices of places you were maybe going to go?
Not really. I was scouted very, very lightly. Not many teams had a chance to see me because it was only 1 year of high school basketball.
Right.
I got a couple of offers from small, historically Black colleges down the South. Growing up in California, I'd never been down South, so that wasn't that appealing to me. The little bit of sports that I did watch as a teenager, I knew about UCLA and the great teams they had. So knew a little bit about the Pac-8, and I thought, wow, it'd be fun to play, with UCLA. I was hoping I can go there or to play against them, and that's how I started focusing in on the Pac-8. Cal and Stanford were a couple of my wishes that I wish they would show some interest in me, but they didn't. So it took a George Raveling to say, hey, I see the potential in you, just like your high school coach did. And I'm going to give you a full ride scholarship. Back in those days, it was 4 years at a time, right? Yeah. Full ride scholarship. Come on up to Washington State. I'm not going to promise you anything. I'm going to sit you on the bench, actually, your first couple of years, which I did sit on the bench. I got in when the game was out of hand. You know, you're up by 25 or you're down by 25 with a minute and a half to go. And then I got thrown in there just for those little few seconds. But those couple of first years, my freshman and sophomore year, I went from 7'1" at the time. I'm now 7'2". I grew a little bit more. 7'2", about 225 in high school, to 7'2", 275, 285 by the time I was a junior in college. I was in the weight room relentlessly with the football guys and with the track guys, and just pushing and shoving and getting bigger, stronger, faster, learning how to run. I was running the ropes and running the tires for agility drills, running the stadium stairs. And doing basketball practice. And so that was my life, my first 2 years at WSU. I didn't really start becoming a full-time bona fide student athlete until my junior year at college, in which I finally started blossoming into the player that I was going to become.
Did you play? You played with another big kid there, didn't you?
Yes, the big kid you're talking about is Steve Podakis. Steve Podakis was a second team All-American from out of Illinois somewhere. So he was the big star at WSU at that time. We had some good talented teams, but of course we could never get by the UCLAs, the USCs at the time. So we always came in, settled in third, fourth, fifth place in the Pac-8. But we had some good talented teams, and I was happy to be part of that.
Now you're prepared to leave Washington and to get drafted. Did you feel like you were ready?
I felt, being a young kid, of course, I felt I was ready. It just shows you how little I knew. This is 1979. The Sonics had just won the NBA World Championship.
Yeah.
And they drafted me that same year, that same draft in 1979. I was a third or fourth round draft pick. They had 2 or 3 really good players in the first round: James Bailey, Vinnie Johnson, those great players that were young players then. So of course they were going to give all opportunities to those first round draft picks. I begged and pleaded my agent to at least let me go to training camp. Let me show them what I can do. But I was still pretty raw, pretty new at the game. So he convinced me to go over to Italy and play my first professional year of basketball, which I did. I went to Siena, Italy. There, I was able to be out there on the court 40 minutes a night, running up and down, getting points, getting rebounds, working on my game, which never would have happened in the NBA. The NBA, I would have been sitting at the end of the bench and then finally finding my way out of the league after 2 or 3 wasted seasons of not being productive. So that was probably the best move. And against my own stubborn ignorance, that I finally relented and said, okay, I'll go to Italy and play. And that's what I did. I came back. That was back in the days where the NBA still held your rights if they drafted you. So the Sonics still had my rights. When I came back the next year in 1980, I went to training camp. I made the team. Luckily, one of the big guys got hurt, Dennis Autry, but I was able to come in and show that I could be a big player on a big team with a lot of world championship players. This was Jack Sikma and Lonnie Shelton and John Johnson and Fred Downtown Brown, Gus Williams. The list goes on and me. So Lenny Wilkins saw it in himself to say, hey, James is good enough to be part of this team. He kept both me and Dennis Autry, alternated us off and on the injury list from time to time. Dennis was really hurt from time to time with a bad back. And I was able to just fill in every single time and finally work my way into the rotation.
So you played for the Sonics. After that, you ended up with the Clippers.
I did.
What was
Yeah.
that like? And
Well,
and who was coaching at that time?
yeah, Jimmy Lynam was coaching the Clippers at the time. Brand new coach. He just brought him in. I think after Gene Shue or somebody who was there right before Jim Lynam. I played my first 3 years with the Sonics, and I really thought I would be here for my whole career. Fred Brown was here his whole career. I thought I'd be one of those guys that can play my whole career in one city. I was a homegrown kid from WSU. I loved Seattle. Seattle loved me as a young player, very involved in the community and all the things we did back then. But unbeknownst to me, even though management had alluded to the fact that I'd be here a long, long time in Seattle, they had worked out a trade and a new contract with the San Diego Clippers. I got wind of that, and I balked at signing the contract, and that kind of put mud on everybody's face. The general manager, Lenny Wilkins, the coach, the Sonics, the Clippers. And I just wouldn't sign the new contract because I knew as soon as I signed, I'd be traded. Again, my agent representative came and spoke to me. He said, James, this is just the nature of the business. And it is a business. I wanted it to be a continuation of high school and college, where we had the real serious camaraderie, the teammates, the friends. I didn't know. And so I didn't want to sign that new contract. Jimmy Lynam actually flew from San Diego up to my home in Seattle, sat down with me on my couch in my living room at my home, and pleaded and begged with me, James, come on, just sign the contract. You'll do well in San Diego. We got Bill Walton down there. Bill's hurt all the time. You're going to play a lot. And so that's how I finally ended up in San Diego with a much better contract, mind you. Once I found out who I was actually negotiating with, the Clippers gave me a much better contract than the Sonics offered me. And I played the next 3 years with the San Diego / Los Angeles Clippers with Bill Walton, who during the week went to law school at Stanford and during the weekends played basketball with the Clippers. So it was really a strange arrangement.
Amazing. So after that, you end up in Dallas.
Yes. The Dallas Mavericks, if you recall, came into the league in 1980. So they were a young expansion team, startup team, still trying to find their way. They had a couple of young stars, Mark Aguirre and Rolando Blackman, Derek Harper, but they really had no true center. Kurt Nymphius was trying to play center for them. So they were known as a donut hole, a donut hole team. They just had the hole in the middle, still trying to fill that thing. And so they reached out to me with the Clippers and worked out a trade, me to go to Dallas for Kurt Nymphius, who came out here to San Diego. One-on-one, straight up trade. I was a little bit disappointed, but I also knew that, hey, the Clippers were such a horrible, horrible organization and experience. We had great players, though. Bill, these are one of those very, very talented teams. I mean, Bill Walton, Norm Nixon, Derek Smith, Greg Kelser, Michael Brooks, Terry Cummings, Jerome Whitehead. We had Craig Hodges. We had players from all over. Great, great players. But at one point, we went out and made up T-shirts that said "Striving for 30." We were trying to win 30 games with all those players. So when that trade happened to Dallas, I teased everybody and even the media. I said, "Hey, I feel like I've died and gone to heaven." I mean, and the Dallas Mavericks were a perfect fit for me. I fit right in the middle there. I didn't need the ball to be effective. We had plenty of scorers. They needed a rebounder and a shot blocker and somebody to clog the middle up, which was the job that I did and performed for them very well for the next 7 years. And we had some really, really great teams in Dallas, almost getting to the finals or to the, almost to the finals. We lost in the 7th game 1988 to the Los Angeles Showtime Lakers, Magic and Kareem and Worthy and them. But what a great run that was. Dallas is still one of my favorite places, and I'm still welcomed there with open arms every time I do come through the airport or come through town there.
Talk about who was coaching there and some of your teammates.
Well, the coach, when I got there, we went through a succession of them. Remember, Don Carter was the owner. Remember Don Carter with the big cowboy hat?
Yeah, I do. I remember him. He was quite a character.
He was a character. Dick Mata was my coach. Another strict disciplinarian type coach, which I thrived under these type of coaches. The no-nonsense type coaches like George Rapping was. And so Dick Mata was that kind of coach for me. And some of the great players we had, Mark Aguirre, of course, I mentioned, Rolando Blackman, Roy Tarpley. Wow, I just posted something on Facebook today about Roy Tarpley and the great player that he was. People gave me a lot of grief when I tell them that Roy, I think, was the best player the Dallas Mavericks ever had, even better than Dirk Nowitzki. I mean, he did things Dirk couldn't dream of. But the difference is Dirk had a team that was built around him for him. Roy was being part of a very talented team and still the best player on that very talented team. But we saw Roy day after day. Unfortunately, his inner demons finally caught up with him, and he fell into problems. He had difficulty staying on the court. Eventually passed away back in 2015, unfortunately. So it was a tragic story, but what a great player. And I felt like he was my younger brother, just the little brother that I always wanted to have, who I was so proud of, and he was so proud of me. I remember him coming in and asking me one day, he said, "James, how do you keep living your life the way you do? I mean, I want to be out. I want to party. I want to drink. I want to do my thing, And he said, "James, you're so square." And I said, "Well, that's what's keeping me going. I'm sorry." But, we had that conversation, and I felt so bad for him that he just couldn't stay out of way of himself. But yeah, great players through those years. And I was there for 7 years, the vast majority of my career. And the height of my career. Matter of fact, making the NBA All-Star team in 1988 up in Chicago at the Chicago Stadium. So a lot of great times in Dallas.
Yeah, so after that really great run you had in Dallas, and I do remember that, you ended up going to the Knicks for a year, and then you went to Utah. I'll talk about that.
Yeah. Well, by then I'm getting a little long in the tooth. I'm 32 or so. I had a serious knee injury I'm recovering from. Never was quite the player I used to be, probably 80% of what I used to be, and I was older when I got traded to the Knicks. And Pat Riley picked me up to fill in and provide some backup help at the center position with the 1992 New York Knicks. Pat was the coach. Of course, the great players, Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley, John Starks, Greg Anthony, Xavier McDaniel. We had a team, and we lost in the 7th game of the Eastern Conference Finals to the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan, of course. But that was a great team to be part of. I don't think I've ever felt a team that really took on the world as the New York Knicks did. It was us against the world. And Pat Riley had you with that mindset. That was Pat Riley's philosophy. Everybody bought into it on that team. We played harder in practice than we did in the games. I mean, guys were going at it. And of course, led by great players like Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing was a workhorse, and he never took time off. We talk about this load management stuff now. That was ridiculous back in our day. We played and we played and we played, and that was a great experience. I was hoping to stay with the Knicks longer than I did, but I only finished out that year, 1992. Then I went overseas to another year of European basketball over in Greece. played there for a year, came back and played with the Utah Jazz in 1994, went back to Spain for a year, came back to the Jazz in 1996, and then finished up 2 more years in Italy and Spain and Greece, finishing up my career finally in 2000. So my professional career started in 1979 and finished up in 2000.
Wow, what a great run! Great run.
Yeah.
So you played a long time. You had a lot of great experiences. Let's talk about this. What was your favorite European team to play for?
Wow. I break the European experience up into 3 different things. The best basketball was in Greece. I played on the 2nd and 3rd place team. The best teams were in Athens. I played in Thessaloniki. The best teams in Athens were Olympiakos and Panathinaikos. These were serious basketball teams with great Greek players and a couple of great American players they'd bring over to fill in. There was always a quota of 2 foreigners per team. So we could never get past those 2 great teams. But I played in Iraklis, or Hercules, in Thessaloniki. Had a wonderful time. That was the best basketball. Now, the best place to live and just enjoy life and the pace of life was in Spain. I played in Seville, Spain, and up in Lugo, Spain, up in the northwest and the south of Spain. The lifestyle, the people, the climate, the weather, the culture. Wow, Spain it's great. It's easy to get used to. And if you've never been there, you'd love to go. Italy was my favorite place to be a tourist. I mean, if you're into tourism and all the great cathedrals and the plazas and the Roman Colosseum and all the great things in history, Italy is the place to be. But as far as basketball, yeah, Greece was it. Greece was the great place to be for basketball.
Awesome. So now you're done playing. What are you thinking? Are you ready to make that step?
Well, back in 1989, I had a serious knee injury at the Summit in Houston, playing against Hakeem Olajuwon and those guys. I went up for a rebound, as I had done thousands of times before, and my right knee just exploded. I mean, I had a ruptured patella tendon, complete rupture. And it's one of those rare injuries where, and this is your main mechanism for running and jumping and stopping and starting. I mean, you can't do anything without a patella tendon, especially in sports. The doctors put me all back together again. And I learned so much about the human body and how it works, working with great physical therapists, orthopedic physicians, team trainers, nutritionalists. And that was my light bulb moment onto what I want to do if my career indeed is over. I was still pretty young, 30 years old or so, 31 at the time, getting a little old for basketball, but I came back after 6 or 8 months of physical rehabilitation, 3 or 4 or 5 days a week, worked my way back to the starting lineup with the Dallas Mavericks and played another 10 years. But that began my thought of what I want to do after sports. And that was to start up a physical therapy clinic of which I can provide these great services to people who've gone through similar injuries and other traumatic experiences. So that began the Donaldson Clinic in 1989, 1990. We started up the Donaldson Clinic, sports med, sports rehab, up in Seattle, Washington. We had a long run with the clinic. We had 5 locations at one time, and all the way till 2018. So we ran that clinic for 28 years. It was running very well. I was managing from a distance with the management team and everybody else. Every summer I'd be home, either going to school, learning about my prerequisites for physical therapy. I thought I'd become a physical therapist at some point. And then also working in the business every off season for 3 or 4 months. And so by the time I retired in 2000, the business was nice and matured, about 10 years in now, and ready for me to just jump into the driver's seat behind the wheel and take it from there. So my transition into real everyday life wasn't as difficult as most guys is and was, because I had a plan. I had something I was interested in doing after my basketball days were over. And this is one of the things I talk about with all the guys. You have to start thinking about what it is you want to do. And you know this as well as I do, Bill. Sports is one of those things that provide such great pleasure and passion and excitement. It's hard to replicate that in real everyday life. Yeah, you have to find something you're as nearly passionate about as you did when you were in sports. Most guys can't find it. They have no idea what they want to do. But for me, it was physical therapy. And I said, wow, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to be successful at. And so we ran that business for 28 years, and it greatly helped my transition. So I encourage all the guys playing in now and those who recently retired, start thinking early, years ago, about what it is you want to do and start learning about that business and get into it as soon as you can.
Can you talk about your passion to serve the public, and how did you end up running for mayor? That's amazing.
Well, actually, this is my second time running for mayor.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Well, being a business owner in Seattle, I was very involved with all the business groups, business associations, business networking groups, the chambers of commerce, and all those kind of things. And so I'm always around the decision-making tables, because when I join an organization, I usually want to be part of the inner circle, the executive committee. And so I was part of the executive committee. I was a board of director with the chambers of commerce, 3 or 4 different chambers of commerce up here in Seattle. I was vice chair of small business. And so I realized early on that the only true way to make a difference is to be around that decision-making, policy-making table, have a voice, have some input on what's going on with that organization. And politics and society is no different. I mean, we can rebel rouse all we want on the outside and just make a lot of noise, but we're not going to make any difference. We have to be on the inside and really be able to be around that table that tells people that, wow, I'm here to represent you. I'm here to, put in change and make things better. And so that's what politics is to me. But I'm nowhere near a politician. The word disgusts me even. I don't want to be a politician, because politicians are always going by the old politics as usual. They're in bed with their special interest groups. They're in bed with people who fund them greatly. They're in bed with people who endorse them, and they have to carry on that legacy of the endorsement. I'm running my campaign now with no political endorsements. Matter of fact, I tell all the politicals, hey, don't endorse me, because I don't want to be in bed or obligated to you. Big money, folks, I tell them, no, I don't need big money. I'd rather have the small $10, $20 contributions from thousands of people representing them. And so that's how I'm taking this approach to running for mayor this time. We are, I think, unique in a way. We're not getting as much recognition right now, but we still have 5, 6, 7 weeks to go before the primaries. Mainly, we're not getting the recognition because we're not at the top of the money leaderboard. Other campaigns have raised 100,000 or so, and we've raised 10 or 15,000. So it doesn't look like we're that serious yet. Other campaigns have big endorsements from the politicals, and we don't. But that's okay. I speak to the people. I speak for the people. And, I got a feeling come July, the month of July will be very busy. We'll be very active. I'll be very visible. And people have ready access to me to ask me and talk to me about our campaign. So that's why I got involved with politics. And that's what I think. That's the only way to make a true difference.
James, at the end of my career, I had some incidents that probably happens to a lot of ex-players, because I had bouts where I had a lot of anxiety. I had a health scare with my heart went out of rhythm, scared the tar to me. And I know you've had something similar. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Well, I'd always been the picture of health ever since I got serious about sports. Even back in high school, I'm training, I'm working out, I'm running, I'm taking vitamins and supplements, and I'm really, becoming an athlete, becoming a very healthy person. And I've been a very healthy person all through my life, really studying about nutrition. I know you were teasing your co-producer there earlier about being a vegan. Well, I've been vegetarian for 35 years. And so, as big and strong as I am, 35 years of being a vegetarian, played 10 years of my NBA career as a vegetarian. And of course, I thought I'd wither away to nothing and, be 7'2" out there and 202 pounds or something. But that never happened. I stayed big and strong and I kept on going. My endurance was excellent. I could play 48 minutes night after night after night. And I did on several occasions when I was with the Mavericks. I'd be in practice the next day, practicing with the guys. And so endurance-wise, strength-wise, stamina-wise, it all made a difference. So I was extremely healthy. And even after my basketball career, I was still in the gym 5 or 6 days a week, lifting weights, running 3 or 4 days a week, 3 or 4 miles at a time. I did this all the way up until I was 57 years old. And then one day in January 2015, without any symptoms at all, I came down with a nearly ruptured aorta, heart aorta. I ended up with a aortic dissection, which is where the inner layers of your aorta start separating. And the blood fills in between that, making it very, very prone to rupture. And if it does rupture, well, you've only got about 10 or 12 more heartbeats left before you just totally bleed out and you're done. Nobody could save you. And so I was trying to play golf that one day with my friends in January 2015. And I just wasn't feeling good. I was feeling really nauseous. My back was killing me. I was sweating profusely. I just felt terrible. And I told the guys, I said, I don't feel it today. I think I'm going to go and see my doctor. Luckily, I did, because if I fell out on the golf course, there would be no saving me. I made it to my doctor's office. I remember seeing his reception desk at his lobby, and then everything went black. I fell out right there. They did a quick diagnostic scan on me and determined it was my heart, threw me in the ambulance, took me across town, 12-hour emergency open heart surgery on the spot to save my aorta from rupturing. It had swollen to 5 times the normal diameter. So they could see that in the imaging. They had to get that under control. Otherwise, that would be it. And that was the first sign I had that anything was ever wrong with my heart. The doctors say that maybe this was something genetic that I had carried with me throughout my whole life. We just don't know. And us big guys, we don't tend to, my heart doctors tell me now that big guys are awfully prone to connective tissue issues. Our good friend Mark Eaton just passed away last month. And they say from a heart attack. I'm trying to get a hold of some of his people near him to see exactly what happened with his heart. Was it an aorta rupture or dissection? Who knows? But usually a heart attack you can survive, but you can't survive this aortic rupture. So that put me in the hospital. I woke up 2 weeks later after the surgery, 5 days of a medically induced coma to cool my body temperature down. They refrigerated or chilled my blood so my brain wouldn't swell. And they really kept me on ice basically for 5 days. And then I woke up 2 weeks later, not having a clue of what happened. And I spent 3.5 months in the intensive care before I could finally get up out of my bed and tried to stand on my feet. My legs weren't working anymore. Nothing was working. And that began my long, slow downward decline into the abyss of mental health issues, of depression and anxiety and suicidal ideations. You know, I was nowhere near the person I used to be. Even now, I still can't run. I still can't go up and down stairs without laboring. I still can't walk too far without taking the seat. Those things have a way of playing havoc with your mind, especially when you're used to being as active as we were. And so that was what happened with me. It just was a series of life events. It was nothing I'd done abusing myself. I never drank alcohol. I never smoked. I never did drugs. I was a picture of health. And then boom, this happened. My mother passed away the next year. My wife left our marriage the same year. Another surgery followed, another surgery, and another. My finances were totally exhausted trying to save my business. Life was tough, Bill, and it was totally upside down on me before I could finally work my way through in 2018. After 12 months of, doctor's help, prescription medication, behavior health counselors, and a good close group of friends, which included Lenny Wilkins and George Raveling, to really help me through that difficult time.
I think it's amazing, and I think it took a lot of courage for you to write about it in your book. And I know you've written 2 books. And what made you go public with it?
Well, once the darkness started lifting a little bit, I realized that, God spared my life for a reason. I wasn't sure why he put me through all that or why he let me go through all of that, but I knew he was there with me throughout. And as the darkness started lifting, I realized that I've been blessed to have a platform that I have, being a former professional athlete, an upstanding citizen, an African-American male role model who can speak back to our communities of color about mental health issues. So many of us guys, we just want to be tough and macho it out and not show anybody that we have any cares or any worries. But we do. We got a lot of issues going on, but we're reluctant to talk about it in our communities. And so I wanted to use my experience as a way to communicate to my community that, none of this is beyond any of us. These kind of things can happen to anybody at any point in your life. And that's why I wrote my story. I put a lot of helpful suggestions and tips and strategies in the book, how to help us go through these very similar kind of things. The word is getting out. I think I'm doing a good job in bringing awareness to mental health issues and suicide prevention. But especially for our men. Men are a tough lot to work with. You know how we are. But we need to be able to say, hey, I'm not feeling good. Something's wrong. Let me go get some help.
Well, James, I want to thank you so much. I've always really admired you and how you handle yourself. You've had a great career, great life, really inspiration. And to me, the mark of a real great person is what they give back to others. And I think you're doing that really, really well. So thank you so much for being on with us. We're watching the race, so we wish you a lot of great luck, and let's stay in touch.
Let's do that. And thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about my story. I feel like this is the next chapter of life. Basketball is over. Sports is basically over. My business life is over. But I can still be that voice and advocate for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And should I win elected office, mental health issues will be a big part of my platform to help others out there and to be able to really talk about it and get the word out that help is readily available. We just have to seek it out and ask for help. It's right there for us. So I really appreciate the time to spend with you guys. And Wow. I just feel so blessed, man. I made it through. A lot of people don't, but I'm still here.